Welcome to Heartwired, Emotionally Intelligent Leadership for an AI World, the podcast where technology meets humanity. I'm Dr. MJ, your host. Today's guest is an amazing scholar, coach, mentor, and most importantly, an incredible human being. Dr. Okokon Udu is a scholar, practitioner, coach, and what he calls an engineer of the soul. I love that. That is so cool. His work lives in the intersection of identity, relationship, and meaning making. Together, we're going to explore what is unseen by design, how AI reflects our assumptions, how it shapes our humanity, and how we might engage it with greater awareness and intention. You're bringing in this great conversation, Okokon, and I really appreciate it because we all need to hear this. AI is not neutral, and leaders who need to understand that, they need to bring their full emotional intelligence into the space, and they're ones who will shape what comes next. And thank you so much because you are an amazing mentor and have been for me while I was building all of my coaching skills. So welcome.
Thank you, Dr. MJ. I love calling you that. Yeah, and thanks for inviting me to be a guest on your podcast.
Oh, yes. I mean, I was so impressed, like reading a lot of your LinkedIn posts, and I really enjoy your poems, your insights. They're just amazing. So you were designing a leadership program for an African audience. And you're really clear about that intention when you went into AI. And you
Yeah,
walk me through what happened when you turned to AI for help.
I mean, as most of us do, AI has become like a reality in our lives and in our work in what I would consider a good way. And we can also talk about the not so good way, which is prompted by your question. The good way is that there is a partner that has a lot of resources and wisdom that it can like bring into whatever the exploration is or to a design process. And it does so in a way that facilitates it at a pace that, in my experience, I haven't previously experienced. And so as I'm doing that, I am bringing my questions and needs into the process. And then I start to run into what I would call not too surprising surprises. One of which is the fact that who I am essentially and the worldview that I represent, in this case, in trying to design this program, were not implied in the assumptions and experiences I was having. So cultural insights were not generally present. And even when I invited AI to help me design some, what I would call some images, those images tended to not reflect either my reality or the reality of the context. And so I outright asked AI if it was racist. And the response was very instructive in the sense that it validated what I have known my entire life. I said, I'm not racist, but I am essentially put together and informed by a context. And that was when the bell rang. And the context is what we've known, that there are realities that are excluded and that the mainstream operates on assumptions and beliefs that have traditionally marginalized or excluded other voices and other realities. So that was when I got excited and actually made the post on LinkedIn about it.
Yeah, and I read that post, and that's what prompted me for reaching out and saying, I need you on the podcast because we need to hear this. We assume that we come into AI and we're getting an objective kind of view, where actually a what it has been trained to do, and that is
Mhm.
go to the world view of the people who have created it. So, yeah, it's really interesting. So, what does that tell us about the whole design of AI and how it defaults to one culture's worldview? And how do people fight to be seen in that?
Yeah, I think there are a few things we need to put out there like very clearly. We can approach technology and the resources it offers as if it is neutral. So my first statement is AI does not exist in a vacuum. And so what AI does comes from the cultural context and it's not neutral. It's the same cultural context that shapes the interactions that we have in society in an ongoing way. You know, just this morning as I was preparing for this, I remembered the experience I had in my own community here in Minnesota around ICE, for
Mm,
example, that yes, ICE was going after the so-called illegals and immigrants that were causing problem in society, but the target of the work was focused on Black and brown people.
mm,
So it's the same assumptions that show up in interactions or in police arrest or profiling because it's not neutral. So the same context and biases and prejudices that we have show up not just out there when ICE was doing that, but it shows up in AI too, is what my
mhm,
experience has been.
yeah,
Yeah. And so to the second part of your question, what it does is it brings up the same need to advocate, constantly advocating for oneself, not assuming that the context or the situation will address your needs before you show up. So the questions have to be asked constantly. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And how did you come to your conclusions? Otherwise, we absorb the majority viewpoint and perspective that are always
yeah,
biased to the advantage of the dominant.
yeah. So when you're working with AI, are you going in and saying and asking, what culture, what gender, what worldview? How is that working?
I would actually have expected that AI would be asking some clarifying questions to even understand
Uh,
the worldview of who is stepping into this space, but it doesn't. And so when it makes those assumptions, my perspective has been that of either pushing back or offering questions like, so you've provided a lot of resources right now. You've generated some experts in the field of what I'm trying to do. I have looked through them. I do not see perspectives outside of the mainstream. So are there other authors or people writing about this that are from these other cultural groups? So unless I prompt in that way, what I get does not reflect that naturally. Yeah.
So that's that extra effort that you need to put in while you're working with AI to make sure that you're covering a broader view.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is what is often talked about as the constant translating and retranslating that leads to exhaustion for people that are on the marginalized groups.
So like when you're thinking about how AI is responding in a certain way in that limited worldview, where's the responsibility? Is it with the AI developers or with the people that are using AI, practitioners, or both?
That's a great question. You are stepping into the relational aspect of human interaction. So, AI, in my opinion, doesn't bear responsibility for it because AI did not develop itself. It was developed by people. And the issues we're talking about predated AI. And
Mhm.
so informs and shapes what happens. So that responsibility is on all of us. And I would say, especially the people that have the power, the rank, and the access in initiating the designs that we are benefiting from, to be considering like which voices are missing, who is not at the table, what assumptions. So there is an inner quality to the investigation, which is asking myself, what assumptions am I bringing to this endeavor right now? What am I seeing? What am I not seeing? And if we do that in community, there will be feedback provided, that supports me to interrogate, my own beliefs and assumptions so that I come away deeper and bring a lot more wider perspective to what I am doing. So it's the community's responsibility, especially the people that are in roles of power that determine. And the scaling of this is unprecedented. It's at a level that we've never seen before. So with the assumptions, it just magnifies the same problems we have done times X.
Yeah. No, it's well, first of all, it's pervasive in everything we're doing these days.
Yes.
So it's like, how do we keep our humanity,
Mhm.
our differences, which makes us vibrant to have all those differences and the different points of view. And that's something we definitely have to be aware of and when we're working with AI.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you have posted previously that everyone is a leader. And you speak about how people need to show up with awareness because a lot, especially in this day and age where we're moving very, very rapidly, because the world is moving rapidly and we have tons of emails, tons of information hitting us constantly. And we sometimes just move through the world without examining what is happening around us. So, how does that apply to the way most leaders are using AI right now?
I love the focus of your podcast because it's not just about AI. It brings in the other equally, I would even say, more important dimension, which is emotional intelligence. Like, I would say nobody, no leader should leave home without it. That is where we cannot go unconscious even for a moment, because that is where the harm that we are talking about can continue in different ways in society. So for any leader or anybody using AI, we have to bring, I would say, our full selves into the engagement, into the relationship with AI. It is our body, it is our mind, it is also like our spirits. So, for example, there are times I'm interacting with AI and something feels odd. It doesn't come to my mind first. It just, there is this unsettling feeling of, yeah, and that sense of reaction that already comes is good data for me to use in going, have I thought through this? What are the
Mhm.
questions? What is causing my discomfort right now that I can bring into this conversation? Because if I just consume what comes at me, it is at the speed of light. By the time I discover what its impact has been, it is already too late. So consciousness is one word that I would bring in. And it comes in that space of like inner awareness and constant like care for our bodies, minds, and spirits. So we're in the right state to be in relationship with any human for that matter. But I would say even most importantly with AI, because AI is this reality that is always difficult for us to frame in terms of what is it again, that I'm interacting with, that has so much power and knowledge and skills within it. So we have to be in a relational context rather than an object, you see what I mean, subject object
Yeah.
kind of relationship.
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about the relationship with AI. So it's almost like you're building a relationship with your AI tool. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yes, I can. That is one space in this work that I have been surprised by.
Mhm.
So I told you about this designing this program and the experiences that I had. I am I am surprised by the fact that AI begins to track who I am, what my voice is, what my preferences are. Not in an expansive sense because it doesn't have that capability,
Mhm.
which is more of that human sense of playing a lot more fluidly in those spaces. But it is to the point that it picks up from something that we had talked about before and even says, the last time we talked, this is what you wanted, you know? So
Mhm.
it's like we are designing alliance over time. And I'm discovering the more we pay attention to that space of designing our alliance, I am running into less of what I was running into initially in a relationship. So the assumptions have actually reduced significantly based on the data that it has accumulated about what I need and how I show up in the
Yeah, and I agree. I work a lot with my Claude mostly,
world.
and I have my actually it's my business coach who has this platform where he creates what he calls the voice DNA. So I had to upload my like my disc, my Myers Briggs,
Mhm,
and to get the feel of who I am, I had to upload writing that I've done without AI,
mhm,
and also ask questions of how would you phrase this? How would you do this? And then I got this document about my voice, and it was pretty accurate. So now I use that with Claude and say, use my voice DNA when you're answering this.
mhm.
And you're right, it has much more meaning for me because it's what's important to me, not necessarily what they find in the ethers there.
Yeah, very well said. There are times in my interaction where we are exploring options and AI is waiting for me to choose a path,
Mhm.
out of these five possibilities that we've talked about. And that is where this voice DNA that you are talking about comes into play. Because from my end, I would have identified one that I feel is the most aligned. And then I said to AI, so what do you think? And AI goes, the one that is closest, closest to, it doesn't use the word your essence, but that's what I use, is actually option A. And it's always right based on what you just talked about. So this sense to which it starts to really understand this is how you think and this is how you see the world and these are the values. We haven't talked about values yet, as we said,
Yeah,
even
yeah.
as it, but I think it is implied in what you just talked about because in your voice DNA there is a sense of values, things that shape how you show up
Mhm.
in the
Yeah.
world. Yeah.
Yeah. And in one of my earlier podcasts, I interviewed the board president of the YMCA USA, and they're implementing, and why they're implementing AI, mostly for their employees. And what they have done is built it so that the values of the YMCA is built into the AI so
Yeah.
that everything that comes out of that is a reflection of their values, not just of processes or procedures.
Mhm.
Um, and I think we have to start thinking about that. Like, what are our values and bringing it into AI so that we're getting something that's aligned to us.
That is true. And the first part of our conversation had to do with what I would call the conversation before the conversation.
Well, yeah.
It's deeper cultural issues. So even when the YMCA is doing that design, they have to be bringing that part in. This part about who we are as a society and how we have been in relationship and what the assumptions and beliefs have been. And part of what I'm thinking about right now in my process is it's not just about me doing that with AI though, because the constant design of AI is not done by AI. It's done by humans.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if it doesn't matter the extent to which I have conversations with AI about myself and what I need, if the input that is coming into AI's development doesn't reflect this conversation, we will always be behind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
Absolutely.
danger. That's the danger because it's like I'm dealing with the AI over here and AI is getting it. People designing AI don't get it. We've got a problem that will never resolve our issues.
And that's so true. It's so true. We're at this point where we really have to consciously make decisions about AI and what and the direction of AI. And I think that comes into that emotional intelligence. I use emotional intelligence as a container for our humanity. That is the essence of who we are and what we bring into the world. Now, I know you were at a conference. We talked a little bit about you were at a conference because you're an incredible coach and a supervisor and mentor as well. And they were talking about AI. And you saw that some people were completely fearful of it or shut down about it. Others were like, yes, let's bring AI into coaching. And then there was kind of the people in the middle that were hybrid, kind of a hybrid. What does that actually look like? First of all, where do you land and what does that look like?
That's a good question. I will get to that last part of where I land at. But the framing of what I would call the whole field is really important because we're talking about change. In this case, again, to reference what I said earlier, change at the speed of light. It does not matter what it is. It could be the latest version of the car you drive. There are people that do not have the capacity to make that transition from a car with a window winder to the one that you are pressing a button to start the car and navigate your radio system. So change triggers some uncertainty, fear, and in some cases resistance by us humans. So when I speak about the people that are on that end of it, I do so with compassion because it's true in all areas of life. Loss, grief, you name it, transition from one thing to another, one city to another. People freeze, fight or freeze, fight, flee or freeze. So and then you have people that I would call early adopters. I would liken them to the people that have little fear in them. They can go mountain climbing, skydiving. They do things and they are actually wanting more. It's not even enough challenge for them. There are those people too with AI and technology. It's like bring it on. You are not bringing it on fast enough, and they're swimming in it. I met those people too who are swimming in it. They've thought about how to use AI in course design and delivery, in student evaluation, and how to make sure that the DNA is protected so it's not shared with the rest of the world. That that is exciting, as you can see, for people who feel safe in any space, exploring to whatever extent there is. So sometimes for the people who are on that end, the questioning we are talking about doesn't happen as much. It
Yeah.
doesn't. Yeah. So the reflection that you are talking about of the questioning, are we going too far? How about ethics? How about inclusion and exclusion? How about biases and prejudice and power and rank? Because everything feels good and ready to scale. So that is where I think one more thing is that the consideration of humanity sometimes is not that of leveraging what we as humans have as intelligence that may never ever be replaced by any machine, no matter how smart it is. So that brings us to this group that are talking about hybrid intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
When I address my fears and my concerns and my sense of freezing or withdrawing, when I address that, there are things about who we are, the emotional intelligence space that you just talked about, that will never be replaced. There are. And so I can come from this, I'm going to work with this, but I'm holding the two in tension, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be doing this important work of not running away or not abandoning self.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hybrid intelligence conversation and group, if we would call it that. So to answer the last piece of your question, I'm in that space. I don't want to. I have never been in the shutting down mode. I'm always in the curious and exploring mode. But I don't also want to go unconscious, where I
Mm-hmm.
give it all over and turn off all my agency and rank and power over to AI to run it, because AI has it all, because it doesn't and will never have it all. So it can mimic relationship just like a
Mm-hmm.
parrot does, but it
Yeah,
can never understand the nuances of relationships in the same way that humans understand it.
absolutely. So we're really close to time, but is there one thing you would like our audience to leave with? One shift they could make when they're working with AI?
Wow. I would say, how do I frame this? That what we are building into AI is not just intelligence, it's a reflection of how we see each other.
Mm, mm,
So intelligence is not something over there that we will never advance anything to the level of meeting everyone's needs or serving the world in the best way possible if we do not take a step back and really revisit the same things that have separated us and caused harm among us, and caused some people to not even want to give anything a chance, or
mm.
mistrust, and all of the stuff that are happening in reality.
Yeah.
So we can never avoid that part of it.
Well, thank you, Okokon. I really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today. And for those listening, if you think somebody needs to hear this episode, please share it. And remember, subscribe to Heartwired and listen to more critically important conversations like this one that we need in this AI world. Thank you.